Welcome back to the Viking Update Show. He's John Krasinski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Suhan from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. Viking Update Show is presented to you by OnX Hunt, and we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studio. Thanks to our sponsors for making all this possible. You can see the John Krasinski Show on YouTube, as well as listen to it via TalkNorth.com or your favorite podcast app. That's John's show on the Timberwolves, one of our most popular shows on the network. Please check that out as well. We have stuff to talk about. It is legal tampering. I do love the fact they just said it's legal tampering. It's legal theft.
Tamper away.
Legal
Tamper
murder.
Away, yeah.
It's legal murder system. It's hilarious, but that's what it is. So I appreciate them being somewhat honest in letting us know what's going on. That's going to happen for the next couple of days here. We were talking on Monday morning, so nothing's really happened yet. But on Wednesday, the Arizona Cardinals will officially release Kyler Murray because they broadcasted they were going to release him. He is allowed to talk to other teams. The suspicion as we speak here is that he has been talking to the Vikings. The suspicion is that he wants to play for the Vikings. And I'll be honest, John, a couple of weeks ago, when I heard the name Kyler Murray, I was like, hasn't won a playoff game. The one playoff game he played in didn't play well, has been accused of not being very studious, doesn't always play within the confines of an offense. All the negatives just jumped right out at me and hit me in the face. I was like, And then the more I started thinking that it was a reality that they were going to go after him and get him, then I started doing my homework. And guess what? When you do your homework, you get smarter. And you look at his numbers, and they kind of remind you of Josh Allen or Cam Newton in his prime. 5th highest completion percentage in NFL history. Dynamic runner. He would cost about $1.3 million. He's probably going to cost less than your punter this year. And if they had someone like him last year, they probably would have won 12 games. So even though I think the negatives are real and they matter, I just think they get overwhelmed by this specific situation, which is that you get a chance to get a guy who's incredibly talented, haven't played for Kevin O'Connell, and it's just too good a deal to pass up in my eyes.
Yeah, I think that when you throw in all the context to this, that's what really matters in this situation right now, because I, like you, I would say underwhelmed by the idea of Kyler Murray just in general. I mean, it certainly does not speak to me on its face as you sign him and all your problems are solved and this is now a Super Bowl contending team. That said, Jim, when you look at their other options that are available, if it's Derek Carr, if it's, Malik Willis, if it's
Geno Smith has become a big name attached to
Mac
them.
Jones, like all of these guys, they all have their certain issues that you'd have to deal with. And I will say that Kyler Murray for $40 million is a heck of a lot different than Kyler Murray at $1.5 million. Right?
Yes.
I mean,
I don't think I'd risk a huge contract on this guy. That number is a big deal for me.
It's a huge deal. And so now you would go into next season with him making 1.5 and JJ around 7, and that's your quarterback room. And that is conducive to being able to add to your team elsewhere, to spend around them to make sure that they have a quality support system. And it makes the most sense of any option that is out there for me right now. There's just no one out there that I look at because I don't think they're trading for Joe Burrow. I don't think that's a realistic thing. And so if you take that off of the table, then you say, yes, I think I said this on the show last week. I think Kyler Murray, of all of their options available, probably the highest ceiling and the lowest floor, just injuries and other things that you'd have to deal with. But at $1.5 million, I just don't see how you would do any better than this guy who does have a history of being very productive, who probably will come in with a chip on his shoulder and maybe, trying to prove people wrong. And that's when you really want a player. And so whether he is your long-term solution at quarterback or not, I don't know. But I think that for one season and for that amount of money, for everything else going into it, I just think that that's the best possible option that they have right now.
And to go further with our amateur psychology, and we're very good at amateur psychology, by the way. We've been studying amateur psychology for a long time. You'd have Kyler Murray, who basically just got majorly offended by his original organization that doesn't want him anymore. And you'd have JJ McCarthy majorly offended by his current organization, which is telling him you're not good enough.
Yep.
You haven't done enough. Maybe you've been too immature with your study habits or your behind the scenes stuff. It would be really interesting to see those two guys both highly motivated in that way.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good thing in general for these two guys, is like to have a room filled with guys that have something to prove is probably the best pathway toward getting better than expected results. When you are trying to recapture what you had, a year ago, like that's what Sam Darnold had something to prove when he came in here. And Kyler Murray will have something to prove if and when he comes in here. JJ McCarthy still has something to prove. Like that's where you learn the most about a player, is when there's the doubts that are there, when people are questioning your ability to continue to lead, or in JJ's case, your ability to be a quarterback in this league at all. That's a highly motivating thing. And if you don't get the best out of either one of those guys in that situation, then that tells you all you need to know about either one of them, and you can move on in 2027 from both if need be. But if there is going to be a way to tap into unrealized talent or potential, this is the scenario to do it, is to bring both these guys in, have them compete, have them be motivated, have them go at it, and then see who comes out ahead. But I mean, I would imagine that Kyler will have the sort of inside track to that starting job. And I think there is a real possibility that if he stays healthy, he can really put up some big numbers in this offense. And that's a tantalizing thing to think about.
Three different thoughts came to mind as you were talking. Number one, I did go back through the Vikings schedule last year. I said, because the Vikings had, even if you like McCarthy, and I do like McCarthy's upside still, you go back through last year, and they had like one of the 5 or 6 worst quarterback rooms in the NFL in terms of just total production. You go back through last season, it's hard to imagine with Kyler Murray as their quarterback last year, it's hard to imagine them winning fewer than 11 games, and it might have been 12 or 13. That's number one. Number two, I think if you sign Kyler Murray, he's only coming here if you make a promise to him in negotiations that he's the starter. Yes. So I think if you sign him, he's the starter, period. JJ's just going to have to deal with it, and maybe that's a good thing for JJ to have to deal with. The other thing that intrigues me that I've tried to get my mind around, because, again, 2 weeks ago I would have said Kyler Murray's a scrambling running quarterback. This is a read and timing offense. But you know what? The ability to scramble is a wonderful thing if used properly. And Sam Darnold, one of the reasons he thrived in this offense is not that he's Kyler Murray in terms of quickness, but he did move. Yeah. He could move. He could run when it was there. He could buy himself a couple extra seconds if he had to. I think it'd be a lot of fun to see how Kevin O'Connell would adapt his offense to Kyler Murray, because he'd have to adapt his offense at least a little bit.
And that's the key, Jim, is that Kevin O'Connell will have to change some of the things that he prefers to do to suit Kyler Murray the best. And so far in this Kevin O'Connell era, I don't know that we've seen that a whole lot. Certainly he did adapt as the season went on last year and simplified things for JJ and got him to a place, I think, where he was, relatively comfortable and it worked out. But you could always tell that Kevin O'Connell didn't want to make those changes. He didn't want to dumb things down and get that. So I don't think he will have to dumb things down for Kyler Murray, but he will have to change some things, because there is a dynamic element of Kyler Murray's game that most of the quarterbacks that Kevin O'Connell works with does not have that degree of dynamic, dynamicism, if that's a word. But
now it is.
So he's going to have to change some things up. And, one of my quibbles with him over the years is we have seen when Josh Dobbs gets thrust into it, when Carson Wentz gets thrust into it, when a few of these guys just go in right away in the first week or two, they look really good because they're kind of just playing instinctually and all of the system stuff is out the window. And then as they are in the position longer and we try to put more system stuff in place for those guys to run, it doesn't look as good. Now, there's a real argument to be made. Well, yeah, Josh Dobbs isn't a very good quarterback and Carson Wentz is what he is. And so, I see that, but, I do have concerns about Kevin O'Connell going full in to really tailor the offense to Kyler Murray, because I think that he really believes in his system and that this is the way to go forward. And so if you go about it with that approach, then you're opening the door up to failure more. And so he's just going to have to be really open-minded and really adaptable. And I think he can do it. I think it's certainly possible, but we have not seen him do that yet for a full season the way that he would have to with Kyler Murray.
That is correct. Hey, the Viking Update show is coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
Is your water leaving white scale, smelling funky, or making you a bit suspicious of what's in it? One call to Aquarius Home Services, your authorized independent Connecticut dealer, means worry-free water for your home and family. Schedule your free water test today and experience the Connecticut difference for just $9.95 per month for the first 3 months. Aquarius Home Services. One call, problem solved. Earning the right to be recommended. Schedule today at aquariushomeservices.com.
And the Viking Updates show is presented to you by Onyx Hunt and Onyx Apps. I'm going to tell you about Onyx Fish today. The weather's warming up. That means it's time to put your augers away and it's time to grab the boat. Let Onyx Fish help you find the next best bite. The Fish app offers the most comprehensive fishing tool for increasing your success. Use the Fish app to find new places to fish and sort lakes by species, abundance, trophy, and keeper potential. Onyx Fish also shows you hot spots, lake-by-lake regulations, and public and private land ownership information. Download Onyx Fish on the App Store or go to onyxmaps.com/fish to get more information about the app that is changing the game. All right, let's move off the quarterback position. However, briefly, interesting move. The Vikings signed Eric Wilson to a 3-year deal. Sounds like it's kind of really a 2-year deal with a possibility of a 3rd year, averaging $6-7 million a year. And it's kind of a cool story. I mean, Eric Wilson, first of all, he's quite the physical specimen, and he just made himself into a player, and he just looks like exactly what Flores wants out of an inside linebacker.
Yeah, I saw Alec Lewis, our partner here at Talk North and my partner at The Athletic. He kind of put out a tweet this morning just saying, like, I'm surprised at the sort of overreaction from some fans of like, oh, that's a lot for Eric Wilson. And it's not a lot, first of all. Second of all, this guy was incredibly productive, man. Like,
yes.
If you're going to invest in a player, like, invest in someone who's come in through the back door and scratched and clawed all his way up, like Eric Wilson has. He was like kind of viewed as like a special teams guy, and then maybe a plug-in guy here or there earlier in his career, including with Minnesota, and then just last year, I mean, he exploded. Like, he was one of their primary playmakers when this defense was making things happen. It was often that Eric Wilson was right in the middle of it. And so, I have complete confidence that this is a great signing, that, Brian Flores will figure out how to continue to put him in great positions to make plays, and that Eric Wilson will continue to validate that faith, because he was absolutely one of their best defensive players on the field consistently all of last season. And I think it's a really cool thing to reward him for that and show everyone around him, like, hey, you put in the work, you make plays, and we are going to take care of you. And I think that's just great for the vibes, but also just great for the defense, because Eric Wilson's turned himself into a hell of a player.
Yeah, he and Blake Cashman together, that gives him something. That's an impact duo right there. They are considering trading Jonathan Greenard. Jeff Diamond, who does a show on this network, the former Vikings general manager, said they should not trade Jonathan Greenard. He thinks he's a good player on a good contract. Don't mess with it. Don't assume that Dallas Turner can step in and do everything Jonathan Greenard does for you. I think the Vikings, one of the reasons the Vikings are considering trading him is he's on a team-friendly contract, and that makes him more valuable on the trade market. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, when I admit that when that first kind of came into the conversation, it did give me pause because he is a great player. He's on a great contract, and those are the types of guys that you want to keep around here. I think he's well thought of in the locker room. Like he's really well liked and super productive. And so I mean, I guess to me, the only reason that you would have for moving him is A, if you get bowled over with an offer, but then B, if you've just decided that, over the long term, over these next few years, we're not going to pay him a ton of money on another contract after this. And so let's get rid of him a year too early rather than a year too late. But I would be very reluctant or hesitant to do it because, yes, I liked what I saw from Dallas Turner, especially down the stretch. I thought he had a really nice finish to the season. But is he ready to take on all of the responsibilities that Greenard has in this defense? That I have a lot of question about. Like, I don't have any question about Dallas Turner's physical ability to put his hand in the dirt, get off of a snap, and get to the quarterback at a regular rate. I think that's there. But in terms of everything else that they asked Jonathan Greenard to do, those are big shoes to fill. And the Vikings better be very sure that that Turner is ready for that if they were to make a move on Greenard, because I just think that Greenard is incredibly valuable. And unless you really believe that he's going to turn this into a holdout situation or something like that you just don't want to get into, I would be reluctant to move him.
I think the second most important position in the NFL is edge rusher. Right now they have two really good ones, Van Ginkel and Greenard, and they have Turner, who's still developing. I think that's a good situation. Mm-hmm. And I think you trade Greenard, unless anytime we talk about trades, there's always a good trade out there that you would take, right? But the kind of trades we are imagining them making, I don't think would be, I would rather see them keep him and let Turner, you know what, you can find a way. Flores is creative. You can find a way to get all three of them on the field at certain times. You have injury. Van Ginkel's been banged up a lot. You have injury insurance there. I would not trade him unless you get blown away by a deal. And now let's move. Now that I mentioned the name Brian Flores, let's move on to something else. Hargrave, who it sounds like they're going to cut, who didn't have a great year last year, and it makes sense to cut him to save some salary cap money. Basically, I won't say blasted. He critiqued Brian Flores' defense, saying that, hey, down linemen in this defense just don't get the opportunity to rush the quarterback. I think that's a flaw. I think it's accurate observation. I don't know that it's really a criticism I care about. That is the way this defense works. He basically, the linemen are there to stop the run and to occupy blockers so the edge rushers and the blitzers can get home. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that.
I mean, it's proven that there isn't anything wrong with it. It's working for the Vikings. So, but both things can be true in that he is right. And Jonathan Allen could say the same exact thing. We watched Jonathan Allen last year and you're like, God, where is this dude? Like, what's going on? Why isn't he putting more pressure on the quarterback? Why isn't he more involved? But then, you do. Like, you look at Flores' offense or defensive system, and then you talk to people who know certainly the game way better than I do, and they make that remark of this is sort of the way that it's designed. It funnels the stats to other players and not to your down linemen. And so your down linemen, while valuable, they just serve a different purpose than I'm going after the quarterback and getting 15 sacks. I'm occupying blockers. I'm doing all of the dirty work, and then everyone else is cleaning up behind me. And so, Hargrave is correct in that, and he has every right to be frustrated. Like, because that directly impacts Hargrave's ability to keep a job and to make money in this league. And so, but you also have to know, kind of going into it with your eyes wide open, that this is what I'm going to be asked to do in this system. If I take this money, if I do this, do this stuff. Same with Jonathan Allen. And so they can't be surprised by it. And the defense is really, really good. And so, and it helps the Vikings win games. And so you can be critical of it if the Vikings are ranked 20th in defense. Like, they're just not. And so, so I would understand any defensive lineman free agent out there being reluctant to come to the Vikings and say, because I know I'm not going to get the stats here. If that's what I want, if I want to get stats and improve my ability to get another big contract, this is not the place to come. But if you do want to come here and win a lot of games and be a part of a defense that wrecks games, like, this is the place to be. And so, it kind of cuts both ways there. And Brian Flores can say, hey, if you don't like it, beat it. And we'll find someone else to do it. And I'm sure that they will. And he can say that his numbers speak for themselves, because they do. But Hargrave can also say, you know what, this isn't for me. Like, I need to go somewhere where I'm more active and more involved in the playmaking parts of the defense. And so, good luck to you. Go see what you can find out there that's available.
Yeah. And that's all, everything you just said is why Jalen Redmond is such a great fit for this defense, because he can do the things Flores wants out of a down lineman. And then every once in a while, he can just split the gap and get to the quarterback, even though he's not supposed to.
Yeah. That to me is, when you look at last season and how unsatisfying it was, like, I really think he might have been one of the very best parts of that. Of that year, just watching him,
along with Eric Wilson.
Yes. Watching him emerge as a legitimate playmaking player in that defense was very, very cool to see. And, he deserves whatever's coming to him as well, because, he's become an impact player, and very, very impressive what he was able to do last year. And I think, like, that only makes you even more excited for what he could possibly bring, with another year under his belt.
Do you think today or tomorrow that Flores sends his condolence card to Tua?
Oh man, he's got to be just struggling with that one, right? Like, yeah, really, I'm sure he did some soul searching. Feel for him. Yeah. Like, maybe counseled him through some of the ups and the downs with it. Yeah, I think those two are, tied at the hip, right? And so I'm sure that they're both rooting for each other. And I'm sure, just as I'm sure as Tua sent Flores a note, hey, you should have got one of these head coaching jobs. I'm really sorry for you. I'm here for you. Like, it's just really, I hate to see good things or bad things happen to good people. Like, I'm sure that Flores got one of those notes from Tua with some flowers as well.
I'm sure people tune in here to hear about the Houston Texans offseason, but actually has some relevance here. Ed Ingram gets a nice contract. Daniel Hunter gets another monster contract. Really interesting to see two former Vikings, completely different situations, but two different former Vikings thriving in Houston.
Yeah, I mean, with Daniil, not surprised at all, right? Like, you knew he was incredibly talented, unbelievably productive here. And I do think that just the way that all of his negotiations played out through his injuries and stuff, he did not like how that went. And whether that's fair or unfair, I don't know. But it just did not sit well with him. And so no one was surprised when he left. And I'm not surprised at all that he's been in just a monster down there. Like, that's really cool to see. And good for him. The Ingram one, I think, is a little more damning toward the Vikings. I think Ian Rappaport, who broke the news, maybe put it out there, like, standout offensive guard, Ed Ingram signs a lucrative deal with the Texans. And I don't think that's sugarcoating it for the agent's sake. I think that he's played really well down there. And so when you look at those are the types of scenarios, Jim, that cause a team to maybe really evaluate, like, hey, how are we doing things here? Because When Ingram was here, that was considered a weakness. And now he goes to another team and now he's a strength. And, that's one of the things, some Timberwolves fans get upset with Chris Finch about lack of developing young guys or whatever. What young guy has left here from Minnesota Timberwolves and gone on and starred somewhere else? It has not happened.
Also, if I can add another point, that argument also ignores the fact that a lot of the current starters are young guys.
Exactly. But for sure, like Luka Garza, Josh Minot, Rob Dillon, no one is left here and has just exploded somewhere else and be like, man, you really missed the boat on that guy. Whereas Ingram leaving from a position that was considered a weakness and that he had to go and spend a bunch of money to upgrade. And then he goes to Houston and becomes the type of tentpole player that they want to keep around for a while. That should make them look at what happened on the offensive line with development, with, what they're running and why they let a very good player go, and who went on to do much better, in a different system than he did here. That's the kind of thing that makes you say, okay, let's take a good hard look at what we're doing on the offensive line here and see if that everything is going the right way.
And now Garrett Bradbury has his flaws, but now the Patriots got to the playoffs with him as a center, and now the Bears are bringing him in to replace their young, outstanding center who retired early. I'm not saying Bradbury's great, but he's healthy and you can kind of put him in the lineup, and he's the kind of guy, if you have good guards, you can kind of protect him. I mean, you just wonder about if you keep Ingram and you keep Bradbury, maybe you could have spent $20 million on something else.
Yeah, possible. I will admit, at the time with Bradbury for sure, it was like, look, he was here a long time. You gave him plenty of opportunities and did fine, but maybe Ryan Kelly is an upgrade. But then you sign a guy who has an injury history. And to me, like, when you make those moves, I have no problem with them looking to upgrade on Garrett Bradbury, but you got to make sure that you do, when you spend that money, that you do find a guy. I mean, the idea of free agency is you have a real resume to evaluate, and it's not projection. It's really just looking at, yes, this guy can do this. And everyone knew about Ryan Kelly's injury history. And so that was disappointing. And so, the other thing about it that we did learn, as you said, with Bradbury, is that you can win at a high level with him as your center if you do things around him the right way. And maybe some of the reason that it wasn't perfect here is that they didn't do things around him the right way. So again, it just kind of all gets to evaluating that offensive line as a unit and trying to maximize how they work together. And I just don't think that they've done that really for a long time here. And that's got to be something that they look long and hard at all off season in terms of what they are doing. I don't know if it's coaching or whatever, but what is happening with that group that year in and year out, we're just like, can you get a little bit more from these guys? Can you get a little bit more? And then the guys that do leave have a lot of success elsewhere.
Yeah, it feels like coaching, which is, I guess, why they made a change there. I think it is that simple. All right, we'll be back next week. Next week, probably be John and Alec Lewis breaking down whatever happens or doesn't happen with Kyler Murray and the quarterback situation. Again, check out the John Krasinski Show here at TalkNorth.com, which is also on YouTube. We appreciate you listening. Thanks to Aquarius Home Services and OnX Hunt. Check out those apps and services if you can. For today, for John Krasinski, Jim Suhan, and the Talk North crew, thanks for listening.